A very good evening to all our viewers. You're watching World News on CVR English with me, Asma Afreen. Over 70,000 women are serving in Ukraine's armed forces in 2025, a 20% increase since 2022, with more than 5,500 deployed directly to the front line. The rise is reportedly driven by modern technology, especially drones, which have created combatant technical opportunities for women previously unavailable in the army. The surge comes as Ukraine absorbs heavy losses. Earlier, President Volodymyr Zelensky estimated around 45,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed and around at least 390,000 wounded since the 2022 full-scale invasion of Russia. Drone warfare has allowed women to take on combat and technical roles without engaging in traditional frontline duties. For Monka 26, a pilot of short-range FVP, drones in the 3rd Army Corps technology made it possible to serve effective.
Командир відділення, зони управління, командира дивізіону.
Солдат, радіотелефоніст. Моє звання.
Моє звання штаб-сержант на посаді санітарного інструктора.
Я старший сержант, інспектор прикордонної служби 2-ї категорії.
Я прийшла за неділю до повноштабної війни. Була в окупації десь 1,5 місяці. Передавала координати нашим офіцерам. Далі по можливості одразу виїхала і приїхала до бригади. З 24.02. Насправді це рішення було раніше, ніж оголошення повномасштабки. Я дуже давно розуміла, що нас чекає війна, велика війна. Я готувалась до цього.
Я долучилася до лав ЗСУ приблизно десь у жовтні. Прийшла до воєнкомату, простояла в черзі 2 години. Намагалася потрапити спочатку на медика, але на медиків не було місць. Були місця на зв'язківців.
В армії я з 2015 року. Вирішила, що мені потрібно зробити якийсь вклад в свою державу.
Служу я трішки більше, ніж 5 років. 24 числа вранці я прокинулася від того, що в мене просто випадають вікна.
Працювала у патрульній поліції Харківської області. Ми були на службі, коли почалася війна. Це було, мабуть, стресово для всіх, і для рідних, і для близьких. І це був такий шок.
Позвонила другу, спросила, є вакансія? Є. Все, прийшла, підписала контракт, пішла далі. Серйозно готувалась, проходила курси підготовки, купила собі на початку зими всі речі необхідні для того, щоб допомагати воїнам захищати Україну. Для мене це не було якоюсь приголомшливою новиною, початок повномасштабної війни. Я просто знала вже, що я буду робити.
Ми постійно були в Харкові, і на момент 24 лютого я була після нічної зміни. В нас була подана команда о 4 годині ранку. По команді зібрались, взяли свої тривожні валізи та прибули до місця. Після цього нас розподілили, то ми почали займати оборонні позиції.
Я перебувала вдома, нас викликали по тривозі. Ми приїхали на службу і потім деякий час я жила в метро. Потім нам сказали виїхати в інші підрозділи. Я виїхала на Закарпаття і служила в Чернівцях.
US President Donald Trump's outgoing Ukraine envoy said a deal to end the Ukraine war was really close and now dependent on resolving 2 main outstanding issues: the future of Ukraine's Donbas region and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022 after 8 years of fighting between Russian-backed separatists and Ukrainian troops in the Donbas, which is made up of the Donetsk and Luhansk region. The Ukraine war is the deadliest European conflict since World War II and has triggered the biggest confrontation between Russia and the West since the depths of the Cold War. US Special Envoy for Ukraine Keith Kellogg, who is due to step down in January, told the Reagan National Defense Forum that efforts to resolve the conflict were in the last 10 meters, which he said was always the hardest. The 2 main outstanding issues, Kellogg said, were on territory, primarily the future of the Donbas and the future of Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. Europe's largest, which is under control of Russia.
When he talks with Ukraine, where we're at today compared to where we're at a year or 2 years ago, if you're a military guy, especially you're at ground, Marine Corps or infantry, that you realize the last 10 meters to objective is always your hardest. That's where the friction of war really sets in. And I think we're at the last 10 meters of trying to end this conflict where it's at. I think we're really down to a couple of issues, and the issues that are one are on terrain, which is primarily Donetsk, which is the second oblast. You have Luhansk, Donetsk, and you call Zaporizhia and Kherson, and the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which is currently is in cold storage right now. But that is a huge nuclear power plant. If we get those two issues settled, I think the rest of the things will work out fairly well. It's been hard. It's been hard to work through the issues with everybody. But, I'd like to remind everybody in the room, the scale of that war is unprecedented when it comes to regional conflict. The Soviet Union left Afghanistan after losing 18,000. We left Vietnam after losing 58,000. Russia and Ukraine combined have lost over 2 million. Think about that. That is horrific numbers out there. And so we need to get the conflict to an end. President Trump has seen that. President Trump has gone out of his way to talk to people.
President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered a heartfelt address at Ukraine's second ever military prayer breakfast, held on a symbolic day marking both the Day of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and St. Nicholas Day. Zelensky spoke of unity, faith, and the shared commitment to defend the nation's future and achieve a just peace. He thanked participants for the prayers and support, expressing hope that Ukrainian children will soon know silence instead of strikes and peace instead of fear.
Присутні, дорогі гості нашої прекрасної держави, шановне духовенство, наші дорогі військові, пані та панове. Я передусім дуже радий бачити всіх тут, на другому в історії військовому молитовному сніданку. Всіх, хто знає, як важлива для України ця ваша підтримка, допомога світу, консолідація, безумовно, всіх, хто на світлій стороні історії, на боці України, а це на боці добра. Ви дійсно знаєте, за що ми боремось в цій війні, безумовно, за нашу державу, за її життя, а значить, за незалежність, свободу, незалежність нашої держави. Ну, за таких прекрасних дітей. Вони є продовження нашого життя і нашої боротьби. Я хочу подякувати за те, що ви підтримуєте це. Це не просто боротьба. Боротьба за незалежність – це за існування, за наше бачення, за свободу кожного і кожної в нашій державі. І я дякую, що ви нас підтримуєте.
By Sudan's Parliamentary Rapid Support Forces targeted a kindergarten in South Kordofan, killing 50 people, including 33 children. Humanitarian access is limited amid communication blackouts. UNICEF calls for an immediate end to attack on civilians. Since April 2023, the army and the parliamentary RSF have been locked in a conflict that has killed tens of thousands and displaced nearly 12 million. A recent parliamentary drone attack on the army-held town in the Kalagui in Sudan's South Kordofan state hit a kindergarten and a hospital, killing dozens of civilians, including children, a local official told media on Sunday. The attack, which took place on Thursday, involved 3 strikes, first a kindergarten, then a hospital, and third time as people tried to rescue the children. Essam al-Din al-Sayed, head of the Kalogi administrative unit, told AFP using a Starlink satellite internet connection. He blamed the assault on the Rapid Support Forces and their ally, the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North faction led by Abdul Aziz al-Hilu, which controls much of South Kordofan and parts of Blue Nile state.
ده بس عجباني قاعد نسوي والله البندي ما تظهر للدرون ماشي شغل ما شاف ولا ويا شغل ولا الطيران حركة ابراهيم دوغلو
Turnout is the focus of attention as people in Hong Kong cast their ballots in a legislative council election. Voting began at 7:30 Sunday morning local time. 20 out of the 90 council seats are directly elected in the poll, which takes place every 4 years. Speaking to reporters after casting his ballot, Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee referred to the high recent Rise housing complex fire that killed 159 people. He underscored the significance of the election, saying each vote will support affected residents and help Hong Kong move forward. The legislature's electoral system underwent Beijing-led reforms 4 years ago under the slogan of Patriots Governing Hong Kong. Under the new system, pro-democracy, anti-government individuals have effectively been barred from running. Turnout in the 2021 polls was a record low 30.2%. In a bid to boost turnout, the Hong Kong government is encouraging people to vote by taking steps such as keeping polling stations open until late at night. However, people's interest remains low as candidates are mostly pro-Beijing. A temporary suspension of election campaigning after the deadly fire is also contributing to the lack of enthusiasm among the electorate.
Still in mourning is being asked to elect new lawmakers. But with public anger still high in Hong Kong following the recent deadly apartment fire, many are anticipating a historically low voter turnout. It is just the second time the city will vote in members of its legislative council since Beijing drastically reformed Hong Kong's electoral system in 2021. The number of directly elected seats was reduced from 35 to 20, and the laws were revised to exclude pro-democracy candidates and ensure only Chinese Communist Party loyalists could run. The result was a voter turnout of just 30%. This time around, authorities tried to boost numbers through promotional campaigns and by increasing access to polling stations. But the devastating blaze on November 27th has left a mark on the city. The government has tried to quell the anger by promising more relief and reconstruction efforts.
Every vote represents our push for reform, our protection of the victims of the disaster, and a representation of our will to unite and move forward together.
Ultimately, on Sunday, the public will decide on just 20 out of 90 seats. The rest will be appointed by largely pro-Beijing committees.
A group of soldiers has appeared on Benin State TV announcing the dissolution of the government in a coup of apparent, the latest of many in West Africa. The group, which called itself the Military Committee of Refoundation, on Sunday announced the removal of all the presidents and all state institutions. Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigri has been appointed president of the military committee, the soldiers said. Following its independence from France in 1960, the West African nation witnessed multiple coups, especially in the following decade, its independence. Since 1991, the country has been politically stable, following the 2-decade rule of Mathieu Kercor, a Marxist-Leninist who renamed the country the People's Republic of Benin. President Patrice Talon had been in power since 2016 and was due to step down next April after the presidential election. Talon's party pick, former Finance Minister Romuald Badgani, was the favourite to win the election. Opposition candidate Renaud Abjogo was rejected by the Electoral Commission on the grounds that he did not have sufficient sponsors. Last month, the country's legislature extended the presidential term of office from 5 to 7 years, keeping the term limit at 2. The coup is the latest in a string of military takeover that has rocked West Africa. Last week, a military coup in Guinea-Bissau removed former President Omaro Embalo after a contested election in which he both and the opposition candidates declared themselves winners.
Pascal est nommé président du comité militaire de la refondation pour compter de ce jour, fait à Cotonou le 7 décembre 2025. Je vous remercie. Chers compatriotes, en ce jour, dimanche 7 décembre 2025, nous, forces de défense et de sécurité, après une réflexion bien mûrie et pour donner un repère à notre pays, avons décidé de prendre nos responsabilités suite aux multiples dérives du gouvernement de M. Patrice Talon. Il s'agit de, sur le plan sécuritaire, la dégradation continue de la situation sécuritaire au nord du Bénin, l'ignorance et la négligence de la situation de nos frères d'armes tombés au front et surtout celle de leurs familles abandonnées à leur trésor par la politique de M. Patrice Talon, malgré les multiples promesses relayées en grande pompe sur les médias. Le comité militaire pour la refondation CMR a décidé 1. La constitution du novembre 2025 est suspendue. Toutes les institutions sont dissoutes. Les activités des partis politiques suspendues jusqu'à nouvel ordre. Les frontières terrestres, maritimes, aériennes du Bénin sont fermées jusqu'à nouvel ordre. La prise du pouvoir en ce moment traduit la ferme volonté du comité militaire de la refondation à mettre fin à l'exclusion de toutes les couches sociales de notre pays sans distinction aucune dans la suite de la transition et de restaurer la cohésion nationale. L'armée nationale exercera jusqu'à nouvel ordre la plénitude des pouvoirs dévolus à l'État du Bénin. Tous les fonctionnaires du Bénin, tous les travailleurs de nos villes et campagnes, où qu'ils se trouvent, doivent continuer d'assurer normalement leurs tâches quotidiennes avec plus de foi et de discipline. Quant aux vaillantes populations, l'armée les invite à vaquer librement à leurs occupations dans la paix et la tranquillité. À la communauté internationale, le comité militaire de la refondation rassure que les engagements internationaux du Bénin ainsi que les droits humains seront respectés. Enfin, l'armée s'engage solennellement à donner au peuple béninois l'espoir d'une aube véritablement nouvelle où il règne la fraternité, la justice et le travail, symbole de notre unité nationale. Vive l'armée, vive la refondation de notre chère patrie, vive le Bénin, la République ou la mort, le peuple d'abord. Cotonou, le 7 décembre 2025. Communiqué numéro 2. Le comité militaire pour la refondation CMR, réuni ce jour dimanche 7 décembre 2025 à Cotonou, a délibéré et décidé ce qu'il suit. Monsieur Patrice Talon est démis de ses fonctions de président de la République. Le lieutenant-colonel Tigrid Pascal est nommé président du comité.
A chain of tropical storms and monsoonal rains has battered Southeast and South Asia, setting off landslides, flooding vast tracts and cutting off communities from Sumatra's island's rainforest to the highland plantation of Sri Lanka. At least 1,812 people have been killed in the natural disaster, rolling across Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand and Vietnam over the past 2 weeks. Indonesia's president on Sunday vowed to step up aid, with demonstrators rallying after the country's death toll surpassed 900. More than 2 million people in Sri Lanka, nearly 10% of the population, have been affected by last week's floods and landslides triggered by Cyclone Ditwa, the worst on the island this century. The Disaster Management Center said monsoon storms were adding more rain and making hillsides unstable, including in the central mountainous region and the northwestern Midlands. Helicopters and planes were being used on Sunday to supply to communities cut off by landslides in the center of the country. The Sri Lanka Air Force said it had perceived a plane load to relieve suppliers from Myanmar on Sunday, the latest batch of foreign aid. The government has confirmed 618 dead, 464 from the lush tea growing central region, while 209 people remain unaccounted for. The number of people in state-run camps has dropped to 1 lakh from peak 2,25,000 as flood waters receded across the island by Sunday, the DMC said. More than 75,000 homes were damaged, including close to 5,000 that were completely destroyed, it added. The Indonesian government has so far shrugged off calls to declare a national disaster, which would free up resources and help government agencies coordinate the response. The toll in Indonesia on Sunday remained at 916 dead, with 274 still missing. Prabowo will also monitor the distribution of aid, the evacuation process of residents, and measures to reopen road access, the Ministry of the State Secretariat said. Cyclone-driven floods and landslides in Aceh, Indonesia have resulted in 940 deaths and 276 missing. The disaster caused a severe health crisis with diseases, diarrhea, fever spreading. The only hospital in Aceh, Tamang, is paralyzed by destroyed equipment and critical supply shortage. Ruined bridges are blocking aid to remote areas. President Subanto has ordered infrastructure repairs and relief, while local officials are urging a national emergency declaration for increased funding.
Lari cepat.
Hundreds of pro-Palestinian activists marched through Berlin's Neukölln district, calling for an end to German arms deliveries to Israel and urging officials' recognition of Palestine. The protest coincided with Chancellor Friedrich Merz's visit to Israel, his first since taking office. Demonstrators held banners reading "No arms delivered to Israel" and "Stop war and occupation," while Merz reaffirmed his stance that Israel's actions in Gaza do not constitute genocide. Nobel Prize 2025 laureates gathered in Stockholm for a joint press conference, sharing insights on science, economics, global living, and standards. During the event, one laureate stated that life in Europe today is probably better than almost anywhere else in the world, drawing attention online. Physics, chemistry, and economic laureates discussed challenges facing the modern world, scientific progress, and global inequality.
To my way of thinking, what is really hidden and not quite expressed in the national statistics is the fact that Europe is rich. Living standards are good, and people want to have fun in life. And one of the ways you have fun is you have leisure. You work less. If you work less, you produce less, and then economic growth slows down. But if we took account of leisure in a national income account, then actually growth would be considerably better than it really is. You know, when I talk to my European colleagues, the interesting thing is they're either just come back from vacation or they're just...
First, we don't have a true single market. In fact, the European market is divided. You have the practice of gold plating. Each country, each member state has its own regulation. So we don't have... The rents to innovators are not the same as in the US or China. We have a divided market, okay, for goods and services.
That's all for the world news today. Keep watching CVR English.